Hey guys, it's Daniel Faust from War Hero to Superhero, and we are in the superhero battle room tonight again for our fourth interview. So hopefully you've been joining us all week. We have a Gulf War veteran that transformed his life into leadership, TV, podcasting. His name is J Loren Norris. He is a phenomenal guy. I've been tracking him for years. I guess you can stalk in this day and age, which is awesome. So he allows me to do that. So I asked him to come on the show, and he graciously gave his time, and he impromptu got ready, like in 10, 30 minutes notice by me sending the link last second. So that's why he's a war hero to superhero. So I'd like to introduce him to the show. And I'd love you to tell us your war hero story or military story, because some people don't like that war hero term, but that's what we do here. So if you can share your military story and how you transformed out of the service to where you're at today.
Well, thanks first. I want to say thanks for having me on, Daniel. I really appreciate not only what you do, but the opportunity to be here. I probably didn't plan to be a soldier to begin with, but I realized that my grandfather had been, and I idolized him, although my dad wasn't really a big picture in my life and he never served. But when I failed my final exam, the first year of electronics engineering school, it was because my high school sweetheart broke up with me. And I let my life go off the rails in a matter of about 24 hours. And within 15 days, I was enrolled in delayed entry and ready to go off to basic training just to get out of town.
Wow.
And so literally I did. I joined the service. I graduated from high school in May of 87, and I joined the Air Force in September of 88. That's when I went off to basic training. And, it wasn't a major plan. It's just what happened. The sad part was I had so many speeding tickets and moving violations that by the time I got to basic training, my electronics engineering degree I was working on didn't apply anymore because they wouldn't let me clear for what I was on delayed entry for, and that was explosive ordnance disposal.
Oh.
So they came to me in the MEP station. They're like, look, three things. Number one, you have an outstanding parking ticket, and you have to take care of that. And I'm like, okay, well, then I guess I'll come back another time. So you don't understand. You've already been sworn in. You belong to us. You're not leaving. So call your mama, tell her go pay your ticket. So she drove an hour to the courthouse. The judge said, so where's the boy? Why isn't he here to take care of his ticket? She goes, he's in basic training and they won't let him leave. He goes, dismissed. They'll work that out of him. And that was the end of that one. And then they said, number two issue is because of your 13 moving violations, you can't pass a top secret security clearance. So you are not going to get EOD.
Ooh.
So number three, you have two options. You can spend the rest of your military career kicking boxes, or you can be a firefighter. And I said, well, I came in to save lives, to be a hero. I got that hero complex in me. So make me a firefighter. And so I went off to the Air Force Academy, Air Force Fire Academy, and spent the next 5 years as a firefighter, and first in Reese Airplane Patch in Lubbock, protecting the pilots that were in training, then in Sotocano Air Base in Honduras, and then in England, where I supported the F-15 Strike Eagles and the EF-111s that actually flew combat missions over Iraq and Kuwait.
That's a fast turnaround. 5 years going three places. It took me forever to get moving. I guess after 2000, they decided like,
yeah, it just kind of slowed down. It wasn't the same kind of war anymore.
Oh, okay.
We went from no war to ramp up pretty fast in the late 80s and early 90s. And so that was a different kind of an evolution. I got out in September of 93 with no cartilage left in my knees, 10% medical disability from the Air Force, couldn't do the job as a firefighter, and every city municipality that hires firefighters wants a 4-year degree. And I'm like, I got 5 years active duty military and a firefighter 1 certification. What do you want from me? And they're like, a degree. I'm like, a degree in what? And they're like, I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving, but without a degree, you don't get hired here. I'm like, that's just crazy. So I went into sales. And I spent the next 20 years in sales, selling advertising and media and you name it.
Wow. So that time that you got out of the service, how was it? Because it was a big culture shock, right? You're saying like everywhere you went, you're like, oh, I need this, I need this. So was it a hard transition? Was it an easy transition out?
It was an unusual transition coming out for a couple of reasons. Number one, growing up as the only son of a single mom, she had no idea what to do with me in my early 20s. When I came back, she's like, there's no jobs in our little hometown. Our fire department is volunteers, so you're not going to get a job here. So you're going to have to go elsewhere. And the only family I had anywhere else was my grandpa, who was in his early 70s, and he lived in a town smaller than my hometown. And so I said, you know what? I'll go spend some time and take care of him. I got a temporary job as a youth pastor at a little church and did that for, I don't know, a little less than a year. Then they put him in a nursing home and I had to get a real job. And that's when I got into sales and then met my wife at church. And that was 26 years ago. So just kind of been on the journey of discovery and growing up. I think the one piece of advice that I got that first year out of the military, before I met the woman who's now my wife, I encountered a lady by the name of Judge Cynthia Kent in Smith County, Texas, and had a chance to sit down and chat with her. And she looked at me and she said, for somebody straight out of the military with no real education, you're probably one of the brightest guys I've ever met. But I'm going to tell you right now, mark my words, if you don't in the next 60 to 80 days get your GI Bill underway, getting you in toward law school, you'll never go back. You're going to find yourself caught up in the rat race as a young man. You're going to be working until your kids are retired before you ever get a chance to stop and truly go back to school. And those were almost like prophetic words, because here I am 26 years later with no education, no degree besides my high school diploma, aside from the fact that I never stopped reading. And I have 9 bookshelves. They're all full, and I still have books in boxes because I don't have any place to put them. But I never did go back to school, never used my GI Bill, and it all expired.
That sounds really interesting. So you've transformed so much. So it's like, I thought like people have met me and they're like, you have a master's degree. And I'm like, no, I don't. I have a master's equivalent degree. So what made you transform from this war hero to superhero? How did you get into leadership? Because that's all I've seen you be. It's like you've been TV producer, leadership guy. Everybody's calling you, that type of stuff. You're John Maxwell certified. What made you transform? Because those words to me would have been like either like really pissed off and I'm going to prove it to you and I'm going to go to school, or vice versa. I'm going to totally give up and then I'll just become the sloth that you called me to be. Thanks, prophecy.
Well, I think the one step worse than that was while I was on active duty at my last duty station, our squadron commander, civil engineering squadron commander, was a guy by the name of Major Keebler. And his wife was the education, I guess, like the dean of the DoD schools on RAF Lincoln Heath for the English department. And she used to proofread a lot of my poetry and short stories and stuff like that. And she'd look over and go, okay, you need to change this, you need to fix that. I've actually published all of those now that I wrote over about a 2.5, 3 year period. It's more than 475 pages of poetry and short stories. And at one point I was, sent to the education counselor to figure out how I would use my GI Bill when I got out. And I sat down with a lady across the table from her and she said, so where would you like to work? Because it'll be real easy for me to put the words in to get your certifications that match your fire department training, et cetera, and move you toward your final certification so you can just get a job when you get out. And I said, well, that would be awesome. But if I'm going to go back to school, I really want to study something different than that. She said, what do you mean? I said, I have a real fascination. I want to write books and change lives and speak from stages. That's what I really want to do. I was 22 at the time that I said those words. And she looked at me, she goes, well, who would I look to say you want to be like this? And the one person that came to mind at the time was James Dobson. I said, I want to be like James Dobson. I want to save families because mine was broken. I want to see marriages stay together because my mother was divorced and everybody in my family had been divorced. I said, I want to see kids raised in an intact home. And she said, okay, well, have you ever actually written anything? Do you know what that process is like? So I grabbed this giant folder and I randomly pulled out a page. And when I say randomly, I mean literally grabbed the stack, pulled out the first piece of paper my hand landed on, and handed it to her. She read it. She got up and walked out of the room, didn't say a word. And I sat there for what seemed like eternity. Probably 10 or 15 minutes. She comes back though, all of her makeup's gone. She's got mascara in the edges of her ears and her hairline. And she's just looking at me. She goes, where'd you get that? I said, I wrote it. She goes, I realize you typed it. What I mean is, where did you get what you wrote there? I said, it's all me. It's all straight from my heart. It came from my heart, went through my head, out through my fingers. It's on the paper. She said, so those are your thoughts? I said, yes. She said, not this James Dobson guy. I said, no, that's my ideology. That's what I believe. She leaned back in her chair and she crossed her arms and she said, I don't know what to do with you. I said, well, help me figure out where I want to go to school. Do I go to school for journalism or a degree in psychology or theology or what? She goes, none of those really fit. I said, what do you mean? She said, religious leaders that I know, could never agree with what you wrote there. But journalism would never accept you. Your ideas are way too conservative. Okay, so what about a degree in English? She said, you told me you're 22. I said, yeah. She said, you have a greater command of the English language. You're more articulate and your ideas more concise than almost any book I've ever read in my life. And I said,
Wow.
okay, that's awesome. But you still haven't answered my question. What do I need to go to school for? She said, look, if those are the kind of ideas that you have right now, you need to do two things. Keep writing and ignore what everybody says. And I was like, that didn't make any sense at all. She said, look, here's your problem. You're about 20 years ahead of your time. And nobody's going to believe that those are your unique ideas until your hair's falling out or it's turning gray. My friends, it's shiny in the back now and a little silver on the side. So I'm almost mature enough now to believe what I've been telling people for 30 years. But see, a lot of that came to me because it was in that season of life that I realized that as great as my mom was, she was a single mom, and moms can't dad. And then I picked up a book called Wild at Heart by John Eldredge, and I went, oh, that's what I've been missing. And then I read Bringing Up Boys by James Dobson, and in Bringing Up Boys, he talks about how the relationship with mother and son is different than the relationship with mother and father. And I'm like, I never had that latter one. I don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then I read Becoming a Person of Influence by John Maxwell. And I thought back to all the times in my life where I had walked into the room quietly, saying nothing, and realized this is a train wreck. And in a matter of minutes, took over. Not intentionally. It wasn't my ego. I didn't want to. I just realized if this doesn't happen and that doesn't happen, we're going to have a mess on our hands. And there was some natural leader in me. Oh, it had a long way to go to be mature. But I realized when I read that book, there's something here we're starting on. So in 2004, I'd been at Verizon for almost 6 years at that time. And I had an invitation to go to a Dale Carnegie class. And so for the next 5 years, I coached the Dale Carnegie class on human relationships and public communication. And when I had the chance to leave Verizon after the third layoff, they finally offered me a severance package. I'm like, I'm out. Give me the money. Give me my Cobra. Let me go. And I started my own DJ business. And in 2010, January 9th of 2010, about 4:10 in the morning, I woke up to a whisper in my head. It was real simple. It said, you prepare the message. I'll prepare the platform. And I went, what's the platform? I was clueless. I had no idea what that meant. But over the next 6 weeks, every time I woke up at 4:10 in the morning, there was something in my head that I couldn't get out without writing it down. And so my first book was born in I started in July of 2010, finished it in April of 2011. That's the same year that I competed in the international speech contest with the Toastmasters. I went from 135,000 contestants to the final 82. And the same year that I joined the John Maxwell team. And all of those things kind of became a culmination and see everything that's been crammed in there over the last 40 years? Now it's time for it to start dripping out. And so I don't make a lot of money at the leadership thing that I do, but I refuse to stop. I think in the last 90 days, we've had reach of about 600,000 on our Facebook page with about 3,500 engagements where people have clicked like or shared or commented on something, about 4,500 or so followers on the page. And that's because I just refuse to quit giving to see transformation in other people's lives.
That's really cool. And you answered all my questions all at the same time. So that was an awesome transformational story. So man, it's like, I've had some weird stories, but I've never been told that. I've been told like, hey, you're lying to me, like from people that were experts, but not in the sense of like, just boom, just that revelation. It's like, my definition of writing is a sticky note. I wrote my own book by recording myself. So that was absolutely amazing. And hopefully everybody's listening and watching on the replays after on. But we want to hear, so you've had all this transformation. You've been teaching on leadership for years. You have this big influence. So if you had to go back to yourself, like that point when you were leaving the service, either telling a young man, young woman, or maybe a young self of yourself, what superhero tactics would you go over and share with them so they can make that transformation process? Because everybody's is different, but if you had to speak to someone like yourself, what would you give them as advice?
Let me do this for you. I didn't go away, I promise. This was my first book. It's called Live a More Excellent Life. And I'm going to do this. There's actually a tab on my website because I took to heart what happened when I wrote this book, and it answers your question exactly. I walked in to take my mother to dinner while I was still on basic training before they sent me to, or while I was in active duty before they sent me to Honduras. And I found her in the same middle school where I went to school. She was scrubbing the urinals. And I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, well, I got to finish this bathroom and the one on that hall and the one by the log. And then we go to dinner. And I'm like, but why are you doing that? She goes, what do you mean? This is my job. I'm the school janitor. I said, okay, you're missing it. Why are you doing that? She said, son, I dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. You know this is the best I'll ever do. And words I'd never heard or said rose up in me. And I looked at her and I said, no, that's not true. I'm way too intelligent. My sister was valedictorian from high school, top 5 in her class at Baylor University. There's no way we came from that kind of stock that the best you can do is scrub somebody else's piss. She got mad at me. We didn't have dinner. I drove back to the base, and that was the end of that conversation. And about 3 months later, they sent me to Honduras. While in Honduras, I get a phone call. International phone call from across the base. I mean, from Texas to Honduras. I run across the base, take the phone. The first time and the last time my aunt ever called me at work. And she said, that conversation you had with your mom was hard. I said, and I'm before words can come out of my mouth, I'm thinking, are you calling me to tell me she's had a heart attack or she's stressed out or she's committed suicide or something? She said it hit her hard. She came to me, we talked about it, we cried about it for hours. We both decided to go back to school, go to night school and get our diplomas. And I was like, yes. She said, but they wouldn't let her have her GED. And I'm like, oh, man, how bad is that going to eat your heart out to have somebody tell you, you can do this. And then here, you can't do this. She said, actually, they told her that if she will get her diploma instead of her GED, that they'll talk to the school district about bridging her years as a janitor toward her teacher's retirement.
Wow.
And they did. And she did. And she went to school on scholarships. And she graduated from college the same month as her 50th birthday. She went on for the next 14 years to teach all of those students that the school had given up on written out altogether. So we're done with you. We don't have to educate you. Your discipline is too bad. Your truancy is too bad. You backtalk in the school. Your grades aren't going to cut it. You're done. Get out. And that's who she saw graduate, go off to the military, go off to college with honors. In chapter 1 of this book, it talks about a young girl who was one of those students who was a drug addict and moved on as a teen pregnant mother with no parents to be the director of nursing at Georgetown.
That's really cool.
Because somebody didn't give up on her. So superhero tactic number 1 is if you can't believe in yourself, believe in somebody else until you see something rise up in them that you never expected before. And give them a little faith in themselves because they need it. Number 2 is understand that a lot of the lies that are devastating your life, that are tearing you up, those lies have been told by you. They're the story that you believe down deep in your heart, and you're probably wrong. You've believed you couldn't. You weren't smart enough. You weren't good looking enough. You weren't rich enough. You weren't born in the right family. You weren't born in the right era. You weren't born in the right hometown. You didn't go to the right school. And it's all a lie, and you need to move on. And if you've come out of the military missing limbs, missing family members, missing team members who didn't make it home when you did, there's a lot of lies going on in your head. I call it story power for a reason. Story power is the power of the story to transform your life. When you change the story in your head, you change the story in your heart, you change the story coming out of your mouth. And the minute that happens, everything about you changes. You also have to remember tactic number 3 is that the story you tell to others about them makes you the superhero. There's a story in Jack Canfield's book, which I'm quoted in his book, but his book, Success Principles, he tells the story of a guy who jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge. And when the officials came to clean out his apartment and gather up all of his personal belongings, they found a sticky note stuck on the inside of the front door, faded. And all it said on the sticky note was, if one person says hello to me before I get to the bridge, I won't jump. See, here's what I caught in the significance of that story, though. Not just that he jumped and that he left a suicide note, but that the sticky note was faded. Why was it faded? Here's a better question. How many times did he walk to that bridge to jump, and just before he got there, somebody said, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And that's all it took to save his life. See, we all have in us the power to give a little faith, a little hope, a little encouragement to an absolute stranger. To that person that you see by the look on their face, it ain't going so good. A high five, a brief hug, an elbow could save a life.
A social distance fist pound.
Absolutely a fist pound, especially the 6 foot if you got long arms. Right?
Yes.
The reality of our story in somebody else's life, though, can be life-changing, life-saving, life-transforming. And when you can master the ability to go through the checklist of things and go, I need to change my story about the words that I say. I need to change my story about the words that I allow myself to hear from somebody else. I need to change my story about the vision of my future. In the book, I address 9 different things that I call the 9 lessons of mastery. I gave you the keyword for my website, Story Power. But if anybody's watching this and you go to the jlorennorris.com/live, L-I-V-E, there's a download. And on that download, it's 9 lessons of mastery. It charges $7 for it. If you don't have the $7, send me an email. I'll give it to you. I'll email it straight to you. If you put the $7 in there, you download it immediately. And watch 9 videos. They're 5 minutes long. They're the 9 lessons that saved my life. The same 9 lessons that I had to go back and teach my 50-year-old mother. And the same thing that I've taught high school students and graduate students literally all over the world.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Wow. This is one of those moments that you need a standing ovation. I guess I'll give you one. Because that was powerful. That was powerful. So I want to thank you for going over and joining us. If you want to connect with Jay, here, his website right here on Story Power, that was phenomenal. And I know for myself, I had to rewrite my story. That's why rewrite the script is one of my favorite hashtags. That is 100%, actually 200%. I don't even know how many percent. It's not BS, but it's so high that you need to do that. The words that you say are very powerful. Those you are statements, especially the negative ones in your head. Oh, yeah. Rewrite the script. Rewrite the script. So that's pretty much it for us. A couple caveats for our audience. If you want to take Jay and you want to take his story to the next level on War Hero to Superhero, all you have to do is invest 3 seconds of time. We'd prefer you to listen to all 22 minutes and listen to it again because it was so powerful. But all you have to do is give 3 seconds of your time. If he gets the most views in 3 days, we uplift him and we bring him to the War Hero to Superhero front for next month's episode, live through 15 different platforms. And we very graciously love to give that gift. But we give it as a competition because we want to get the message out there. So if you don't have 23 minutes and 12 seconds to go over and watch it, at least take 3 for the moment and support him. Give him a like, give him a share, and go over and get that message on forward. So do you have any final things to say, sir, before we punch out?
You know, the Story Power is more than the way you speak from the stage. It is a self-improvement tool. It is a leadership tool. It is a communication tool. But more than anything else, Story Power is an inside job. I love the way you said it. Rewrite the script, baby. Just rewrite the script.
You can borrow the hashtag. It's okay. I just created from my head, but I'm not going to do copyright infringement. All those people get crazy about that stuff. So actually, I had a guy one time do that. It was funny, but all right. So we're going to let you guys go. Thank you for joining. We have one more interview tomorrow from Chef Brian Jacobs. He was recently on the Food Network, so don't forget to watch that tomorrow at 6. And if you guys have the opportunity, we are doing a live summit at easywayliveevents.com, or catch us on Facebook, YouTube tomorrow to hear about our surviving to thriving and transformation, because we want you to thrive just like Jay's going to help you thrive in leadership. And we'd love to go over and connect with you. So thank you guys for joining. We're going to punch out. And this is always a dialogue. So we'll be on there watching. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.